In 1974, Chicago keyboardist, songwriter, and sometimes vocalist Robert Lamm released a solo album, Skinny Boy, and from it, track 3, Crazy Way to Spend a Year. Okay, a two chord progression with A minor, 7, yeah, dun 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 dun. Yeah, A, but you can also hear the G in it, G, and then E, and then down to E minor, E minor 7, yeah, where it's like E, but you can also hear the D in it, D. What am I doing here sitting on folded chair? Yeah, the lyrics are pretty anywhere. I like the vocal effect, kind of a radio remote trebly voice. Maybe that's like the CB radio type voice or effect or something that I've heard on a few records from this time period. I guess perhaps the band that personified it the most was Flash in the Pan, the Australian studio um, duo. What am I doing here? Soaking up the atmosphere. Now he's gone into a different key center. I like the arrangement too. That basically just kind of like a stately piano. There's rather different than anything Chicago had done. A bit of a music hall element. There's a real like Anglo art pop, like English influence that pervades this album. And we've also got some bass played by Terry Kath, who I believe is the only member of Chicago to appear, only other member to appear on here. I don't think there's any guitar on the album, except maybe, well, some acoustic guitar here and there, but yeah. I like how those drums are kind of like slow and sort of, it almost sound kind of like phased in a way. They're sort of like a psychedelic, or kind of like an orchestral psych quality. And the arrangements, in some ways, remind me of Grounds for Separation by Hall & Oates, which was like that duo's foray into like orchestral psych. Motivation insincere, a crazy way to spend the year. 10 days out. 10 days out. 10 days out. If it's right, then what is wrong? Okay, I guess I'm not quite going to get the plot at this point, but. Sleep will help. These feelings fly. Mornings tend to keep me. Yeah, the way the drums are just kind of like slow, kind of spacey, amid the real stately staccato piano figure. Oh, that is such a powerful move right there. We bring in that that like chamber element, like the cellos, and kind of giving it that like early ELO sort of benefit of Mr. Kite type of element. Like once again, further illustrating the comparison I just made to Grounds for Separation, which also has some of those elements in it, and. I just love how it swelled up, kind of like flared up over that key change, that and then modulated under that. The way this just fills up that chordal progression that I was describing earlier at the beginning of the song. The same two chords, and just adding so much nuance and color and fullness. What am I doing here, furthering my career? Wishing I was anywhere. I didn't quite get that second part. What am I doing here? I feel like a volunteer. Motivation is sincere, crazy way to spend a year. Motivation is sincere, crazy way to spend a year. Okay, so maybe this guy doesn't quite understand his vocation. Feel like the world's caving in. I don't know when I'll laugh again. I feel like the whole world's caving in. Don't know where I began. This love costs too much of me, you and I, instead of we. Oh, the way that drumming once again is just. It's kind of like brimming, like, and it feels like it's trying to contain some major breakout, some major like dam burst. Oh, and now the addition. We're going back into that string section now, except this time driven with a sliding hi-hat, giving it even more of a kind of. Oh, those striking strings. Yeah, I just love the flair and, intensity of this. Okay, on this we've got quite a big violin section, cello. We've got four cello players, four cellists. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on viola, and more people, like at least 10 people it looks like on violin. Yeah, quite a big. I don't recognize any of the names offhand. That combination of that type of rhythm, that is such a perfect match for like the kind of staccato feel of the track and the flaring swell up of the strings. Oh, hear how like the cello is colliding, like the notes they're hitting with the violins and. Lengthy, powerful fade out. Yeah. Crazy Way to Spend a Year by Robert Lamm from his 1974 album Skinny Boy. I'm not sure if this was released before or after Chicago 7, the band's album from that year. Their double album. Yeah, they're big. Arguably their best album. Yeah, half instrumental and then half like art pop, art vocal. And the title track on this album, of course, also appears on Skinny Boy. A slightly different. Oh, and the Pointer Sisters provide backup vocals on both versions, I believe. Yeah, yeah, and although this is recorded in a very different environment, it doesn't sound at all like a Chicago album. It's interesting. Terry Kath plays bass on the album, but not guitar, except for like acoustic guitar on 2 tracks. And Electric guitar appears on one track, and this is really ironic. It's played by James Vincent, and I don't know what him and Lamb really had to do with one another leading up to this, but James Vincent had been in a band with Peter Cetera prior to Cetera's joining Chicago. Chicago. He joined a little bit after. Chicago formed as a six-piece in early 1977, and Cetera joined them later that year. He had been in a band, I guess, the Exceptions, who became Aorta after he left. Yeah, and James Vincent was like the main musical uh, driving force behind that band. And he recorded some solo albums during the mid 1970s, which are pretty good. His old bandmate Cetera joins him on the second one. Yeah, appears on some things, but that's Space Traveler. But that's a topic for a different. Maybe next year's 76 of 76 marathon. Yeah. Anyway, let's hear another track from Skinny Boy, one that features Terry Kath on acoustic guitar, Fireplace and Ivy. Okay, glowy Fender tones. Fireplace and Ivy. I apologize for the scratchiness. This is like a needle drop I did myself, like about 18 years ago. Funny paper wall for your eyes. This is very different vocals than I've ever heard him do. Although Chicago had a couple of moments like this, kind of in this hazy, almost like rhythmless type of lucid ballad. Except Cetera tended to sing on those numbers. I'm thinking of I've Been Searching So Long, and well, that primarily, yeah. Sleep by windows to the west and south. A special place to drink our coffee. A special place to drink our coffee. And now we have like a really soothing, like rhythmic ballad arrangement going on with some light, slow drumming and oh, I love that swell up of the strings right there, and that flute kind of incense that came. Much had begun. I sang the words, I played the tunes, and walked down the hill. This is kind of taking on sort of a through composed nature. We're like shifting into different keys. It's more about atmosphere than any like definable like thematic motif. I believe he's harmonizing with himself, kind of providing sort of an echoey vibe. Crying inside, knowing that I'd have to go. Never wanting, I didn't get the sample. Please be sure of that. Living was insane, I know. Please be sure that living was insane, I know.
That secret place.
Now we've going into some minor keys. Yeah, this is definitely just kind of changing and evolving and going through different like corridors of light and fog and mist.
For us to grow and cry. When the time came, yeah, there was nothing to say.
Now we're building up in intensity. We're going out where things are going to explode.
When the time came, yeah, nothing to say.
Yeah, you can feel it right now. This is what I say about through composed. Yeah, we're not going back to where we've been. When I wish I could understand what he's saying here.
Nothing to say when the time came. There was nothing to say when the time came. Nothing to say.
Okay, a lot of intensity. Let's see, who else might we be hearing here? Drums, Ross Salamone. 18 credits according to... Oh, he was in Madura. Yeah, he was on that great first album. Yeah, Madura. Yeah, put out a great self-titled double album in 19... it looks like he's kind of an additional member, because Madura were a trio. And then I clicked this on, and I don't know if he was... The only member I know offhand is David Hochwalensky, who was later in Rufus. Yeah, Madura, Bangor Flying Circus, Madura, and then, Bangor Flying Circus put out an album in '69, and then they became Madura, and then David J. Walensky formed Rufus, and later in the '70s became a collaborator with Danny Seraphine, the drummer of Chicago, and they co-wrote some of the numbers on like the albums like 11, Hot Streets, and 13. I'm thinking they co-wrote Street Player, I believe, and Street Player was also done by Rufus like a year earlier. And they co-wrote, I think, Little One and Prelude, which Terry Kath said. Although that song was like very personal to Terry Kath, it seemed. That's a big topic for another video. Yeah. I think they co-wrote "Take Me Back to Chicago." That was another one of their. When the Tide Came. Yeah, I think on this album, Robert Lamm was influenced by perhaps some of the newer stuff that was popular in the UK, like Cockney Rebel. I'm hearing some of that in the arrangements. Sparks, perhaps. Who knows? He may have even been exposed to Brian Prothero. Particularly if Chicago were like touring the UK, and like during stops, like they pick up the music papers and hear about things. I don't know like how on top of things like the guys in Robert Lamm seemed to somewhat have kind of like one ear, at least on the current pulse of things, and it's possible, and definitely exploring just a different side of himself on this album, or I could be wrong. It could be just that he. I know that Chicago were influenced by the Beatles, obviously. In fact, Chicago, it seems like every band of the 70s was taking like one little aspect, maybe like taking one song by the Beatles and turning it into a whole genre. Um, and like in ELO, their case, it's quite well known that they wanted to like pick up where I Am the Walrus left off. With Chicago, it seemed to be like they wanted to take like the song "Gotta Get You Into My Life" with its brassy, stately kind of like it's combination of like Stax Vault influence and brass and such and expand upon that, and of course throw in a bit more like jazz and American soul and blues and elements and such, and like, well, heck, the song "Does Anyone Really Know What Time It Is?" It seems to be a follow through to "Got to Get You Into My Life." Have you ever thought about the similarities between those two? Similar key center, similar cadence, and all overall vibe. Uh, yeah, like that's in dun 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 dun. Dun. And it this could have perhaps been this album could have been his chance to explore maybe more of the Rigby-esque side of his, or the for the benefit of Mr. Kite, that area of the Beatles that Chicago didn't really delve into much. Um, yeah. Oh, I wanted to see if maybe there's any way I could find the lyrics to this song and comment on them. I really doubt it, but they this just funny enough, when I do a right click on that title on Discogs and then open in a second window, the first thing that comes up is a video for this track. So it's a distinct title, but looking down like the first pages of results, like Music Match or Song Lyrics or Mojam.com. Let's see here. Lyrics not available. Yeah, it's too bad. That's huh. Of all the lyrics I haven't had access to, that really is one of the more. Oh God, there's a scan of them on the original cover, but I haven't owned the vinyl for a long time. I don't remember. I don't recall that insert being in my copy. I don't see a scan large enough on Discogs. So yeah, if you know the lyrics to the song and can comment on them, I would really appreciate that. Oh, there's a large scan, but it's too soft. Um, I can barely. I'm gonna have to let that go. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Robert Lamm, Skinny Boy, a very appreciated, very distinct solo album with a lot of great tracks. At a time when Chicago were kind of at the top of their game and really prolific, exploring a lot of territory, like particularly like on the seventh album. And Robert Lamm, I guess, had so many. And now that there were like five members of the band, I guess, writing, you had the regular writers. You had Lamb, Kath, and Pankow contributing material, and more recently you had Cetera becoming a prolific writer in the band, and just like on the seventh album anyway, now Lee Loughnane was starting to contribute, and so there wasn't enough room on a Chicago album. Actually, Robert Lamm didn't really dominate the writing much after the fifth album, Chicago 5 in 1972. Beyond that point, it tended to be like maybe two or three songs per album. And so he had a lot of himself to get out on this album, although sadly in the later 70s he kind of started to run out of steam, and his role within the band kind of diminished. Especially when they hooked up with David Foster. But that's another story and another great era of the band. He wouldn't record another solo album, I don't believe, until 1993, and then in the 2000s became a little bit more prolific as the band kind of just got stuck in a ditch of just being like a touring oldies act. Well, for a long time anyway. Anyway, for more rubies and sapphires from the Robert Lamm Skinny Boy album, see the directory of albums by American art pop singer-songwriters and jazz pop artists linked in the description below. Like and subscribe and follow me on social media, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the two tracks we just heard, the lyrics, the layers, the arrangements, the instrumentation, the vibe of it all, the kind of misty, hazy vibe. Um, and the kind of feelings it conjures up in you, the imagery, and how you feel it. Yeah, and the references you might make musically, influences you might like to point out, and most importantly, the lyrics to these songs, what they might mean. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear troubled Tremaximist, signing off.